I'm Brad Leinert,
And I'm Jake Schmaltz.
and our topic was should DNA be public information? So we put in a picture of DNA, just because in case anybody didn't know, that's DNA right there. So we want to tell you what DNA is. It's a chemical sequence that every person has in their body. It's different in every person as well. This is going to be an important part of what we talk about, because if it wasn't different, then well, it wouldn't make much sense to use this as an identity source. It also contains a lot of information about the health of a person or the potential of certain things to occur in a person as well. That's also what you said earlier. And it's made out of proteins, multiple proteins put together is known as genes, multiple genes put together is known as DNA. So I am against having DNA as public information. This is because if DNA was public information, then there would be no privacy. The government could use public transportation and start making you get a little prick on your finger to get into the bus or onto the train. And all of a sudden they know exactly where you're going and where you were at that time when you got onto that form of transportation. They could use this as a way to get rid of general rights that you should be given automatically. The example I have up here is a lady went and got a test for cancer to see if she had it because her mother got it. She was worried that she would be hereditarily inclined to also get this type of cancer. And she found out that she was. But she went into this test believing that it was a blind study. The company didn't have her name, so that they couldn't give it to anybody anyway. But then when she applied for life insurance 10 years later, the life insurance company was able to buy the codes of the blind study, and they figured out that she was inclined to have cancer and denied her because it was bad to buy somebody, to give somebody life insurance. Who's likely to get cancer, more likely to die in that case. So it was a poor it's supposed to be blind and it's supposed to be private, but it isn't, and that can get rid of general rights that should be given to everybody. It can also be, DNA is what's used for cloning, and if somebody was able to get your DNA from something else, they could potentially clone you without you even knowing. You leave DNA all over the place on all kinds of things, and as soon as somebody goes and picks that up, then now they can go and clone you. And to some people that's not right, because I don't want myself cloned. I'm a unique person and I don't want to be cloned. I just don't. It's actually kind of interesting. This is the first sheep that was ever cloned, and then another clone of the same sheep a couple of years later. So I thought that was really cool, because it does happen. It is possible. It's the same DNA in both of these, and if you steal somebody's DNA, all of a sudden now you're cloned. You may not even know you are, because they took your DNA without you knowing. It's public information. The last one I have is genealogy access. It's I guess it's not the last one I have. It's something that I've thought about. It's great. He's gonna stay. You could find all your relatives, and you could be that orphan that finds his parents really easy, or finds her parents really easy. But then you can also be, you can also. But way easier than I thought. You can also get attacked by other people. All of a sudden you're going into witness protection. My DNA is public. That's not very protection-y anymore. They can find your relatives. If you're going into witness protection, it's generally there's some kind of violent act in the process. Now they can find your relatives really easy because it's public information that your DNA is a close match to the DNA of your parents. So you shouldn't have public access to DNA because it's dangerous, and you should have that right to privacy.
And I'm for the yes side, so I believe DNA should be made public access, or public information. Why? Because it would play a huge role in solving crimes. So forensics would be a great tool, just due to the fact that you basically leave your DNA at every place you go or anywhere you're associated with without you even knowing it. It could be through hair roots, it could be through your dead skin cells, it could be through semen, blood, a lot of stuff. And it would just, if that's picked up through forensics, that's a huge tool to really help who's at a crime and who wasn't. And how they would do this is through DNA databases, so just stored information on their computers. Going on, obviously it's not public information, it's only on record for police forces is past criminals, typically. Going furthermore, DNA versus fingerprints. A huge tool for forensics right now is fingerprints. And fingerprints are it's good source of evidence, but it's hard to capture, just due to the fact that a good fingerprint has to be on like a soft surface, this and that, or it can't be on like typically like it wants to be on glass or plastic, but if it's on carpet, it's pretty much smudged, or a lot of times it's really hard to convict somebody on just a single fingerprint. And another huge point about fingerprints compared to DNA is that fingerprints aren't based on a whole sequence of someone's genetic makeup, just part of it. And I'm going to go into more detail about it, fingerprints. If you can see here that fingerprints have these distinct markings. Everybody has a different marking in their finger. And forensics call them loopholes. So they like to get around maybe like 20-some loopholes to really say this is a good fingerprint. And 20 loopholes is really hard to capture a lot of times. Just, I was telling you guys about surfaces, or they get smudged. So a lot of times these fingerprints get thrown out and you can't use it as evidence. Compared to blood splatter, if that's at a crime, that's someone's genetic makeup. That can really convict, hey, that person was at a crime, or was at the scene of the crime. So going to these databases, forensics teams are very limited to just past criminals. So if you have a new criminal, say he's 18 and he's on this crime spree, and he has no history of past crimes, you can't really convict him on this newly found DNA unless if you ask him for permission of a DNA sample, and they can respectfully decline. So basically that DNA gets thrown out and you can't use it as evidence. But if it was made public information, they could link that person to the crime, and it would basically improve the accuracy and efficiency of who a criminal was, or who did this crime. Going on, this is basically another picture of the double helix, and this shows polypeptide bonds, all these amino acids, and it basically shows how diverse every person's structure and makeup is, because there's these millions, amino acids, and they combine and they make this certain structure, which makes it very difficult or different than everybody else's. Next topic going on is social services. So obviously your DNA is shared by relatives, your parents, or anyone in your ancestry has a similar genetic makeup as yours, and it can help link who missing people in your family. Maybe someone doesn't know who his dad was or his mother was, or simply what did my great grandfather do. Having DNA on a public database could really show solve these answers, instead of going to these hectic ancestry tree programs that basically takes a lot of money, tends to tends a lot of money to really, start to develop them. And if you just had it on a public database, it really would make what you're looking for a lot simpler. Another topic would be medical information, and this would be huge because it could help compare illnesses, a new illness, or from a past person to a new patient. So basically, it could properly prepare medical professionals, and it could make treatment stronger because medical professionals could predict how the body may respond. And these DNA samples and profiles contain private information about health and genetic relationships, including past relatives and current relatives. And why this would help is, cancer. Right now it's pretty much a lot of forms like melanoma. If maybe you didn't know that, hey, my great grandfather had melanoma, or it's in your ancestry and it's in your genes, but you had no idea. But if it was on a public database, medical professionals could look that up and say, hey, this person is at risk of melanoma, or maybe alcoholism, or something like that. So it'd be huge. Another topic would be government issues. So basically, having DNA on a public database would be huge for central intelligence agencies, or federal intelligence agents, or basically CIA and FBI, and also DNA for judicial branches. Judicial branches could use DNA as a critical evidence. And also it could help with tracking individuals because anywhere you go, you leave your DNA because it's in every single it's in every single cell of your body. And your bounty hunters can find those people on the run, and they can't hide for very long. In conclusion, DNA databases raise really important issues about privacy and human rights, obviously. But DNA can be used to track, relatives or people on the run. But you also want to be very cautious due to the fact that it can be misused by governments, or someone could possibly steal that information. And then going on my topic, I also want to make it very clear that DNA is not always foolproof. Just because someone's DNA was at a crime doesn't mean they're 100% guilty of the crime, because they could be there just at the wrong time. But a huge reason what DNA samples can help with healthcare, can help with social services, and it can really help with forensics. But in conclusion, we would also have to put safeguards and legal restrictions on how this DNA should be made to the public. But I think it would be a huge tool for a lot of the issues that I brought up. I think forensics especially. Basically, I think it would lower crime rate. It would help solve crimes. You wouldn't have those kids that wondering who their dad is or wondering who their mom is. And it basically, if it's used properly, it can be a really great thing. And these are my references.